Hey everyone, I'm Amy,
And I'm Sarah.
and together
Together,
we're
we're
unscripted.
unscripted.
So, the second time's a charm. We already recorded this podcast, but yeah, it didn't take. So
And then
today's
it
topic,
disappeared when we tried to fix it. So, yeah.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
what we got to talking about demons, right, Aim?
Wednesday. Today's podcast episode is about demonic possession, mental illness, and the strange correlation between the two. So all I gotta say is not today, Satan. It's happening. So mess
Mhm.
with the wrong ones, all right?
Right?
Mm. So obviously, demonic possession has been a hot topic across Hollywood for a while. Going back to the big blockbuster hit, The Exorcist. So when that came out, it came out in 73, and William Peter Blatty, he's the one that wrote the best-selling book about. Well, the backstory, really quick, is he had found a newspaper article about an actual demonic possession in what was it? The city of Maryland or the city of Maryland? The state of Maryland?
It was in Missouri.
Oh, okay.
It was in St. Louis, Missouri.
I'm thinking of the actual Exorcist. Where was that?
The actual exorcist of Roland Doe
No, no, no. I'm
was,
talking about the movie. They
oh,
changed
the
the
movie?
setting.
Yeah, the movie, I believe, I actually don't remember where the movie is. Hold on a second. I can find out real quick. So
This is
let me,
what was in our original podcast.
Exorcist. It was taken place in.
Please tell me I'm
Huh,
right.
hold on. I'm looking. Let's see. Um, why are you gonna be goofy and not tell me where this took place?
Oh yeah, well. Not even in like the Exorcist synopsis. I'm telling you, it was Maryland. We're just gonna say that. It was Maryland until you fact check and prove me wrong or right. It was Maryland.
Okay, well, we'll go with that. You can go ahead while I'm still looking it up.
Okay. But that was like the Hollywoodized version of what actually happened. I mean, obviously there wasn't an actual, person who had their head spinning around. There was no projectile vomit. But besides those special effects, a lot of the core of that story took place, and Sarah's got the information on that. Which I mean, I'm sure you could Google and you may have heard about it, but regardless, we're gonna briefly touch on that before we get into the next topic.
Yeah. So I'm still looking for that where that movie took place, where that
I'm gonna
movie was
find it.
filmed.
Find it. I'll find it. You watch. All right, you go.
Okay, so this basically, he created the Exorcist movie based on the real story of a young man they call Roland Doe, or his actual name was what is it? Ronald Hunkler was his actual name, but they used Roland Doe for privacy reasons. So basic rundown of what happened. He was a 13-year-old boy, loved his aunt. She was very eccentric, very unique. She introduced him to using a
Oh,
spirit board, or as we know, Ouija boards. So she was teaching him how to contact, spirits or entities, and he got really into it. So sooner than later, she ended up passing away. And after she passed away, Roland decided or started hearing like noises in his room. He started hearing scratching. He started hearing like the knock on the wall, the three knocks on the wall mocking the Holy Trinity. He was, constantly hearing these things. And when he brought it to his mom, they took him to, every doctor on the planet, and they couldn't really figure out what it was. But it came down to he started waking up with scratches on his back that he couldn't reach. He started speaking in tongues. He didn't know that he could talk. So he was talking in like demonic languages. And it came down to the fact that They took him to a bunch of Catholic priests. They had moved him to several different locations to try to, see if a change of environment was what caused it, but it followed him everywhere. So on April 16th, let me see, in 19, it was the story began in 1949, January 1949. And on April 16th or April 18th, the priests came to the household. They laid holy relics and crucifixes upon Ronald. They started shouting at Satan, telling the demon that Saint Michael was going to battle him for the boy's soul, and he was just cursing them and saying these horrible things in this language he didn't understand. He was just
Wasn't it
talking,
Latin?
and he started talking, huh?
Wasn't it Latin? Parts of it were Latin?
Yeah, they
I
were saying
remember.
it, part of it was Latin, some of it was like Greek, some was Hebrew. It was a lot of things that the
Mhm.
boy didn't know.
The big
So
old
he just
pretzels.
started,
Okay.
yeah, he started like cussing at them, and they said that his actual, bed started to shake while he was on it during this exorcism. And this bed allegedly lifted up and flung itself across the room, and it knocked into the priest against the wall. So they had to end up pushing it back. In the meantime, the
Wow,
kid's still
timber.
screaming and crying. So a full, it says, 7 minutes of this torturous, debacle
Mhm.
that they're going through with this poor kid. He apparently came out of this trance like state that he was in, and he told him simply, or told the priest simply, he's gone. And that was literally the end of it. But he had scratches, he had the mocking of the Trinity, his bed was shaking, things were moving all over the place, and he didn't know what was going on. So
Wow.
at the end of it, that's exactly what happened. That's basically the synopsis of that story.
Right.
And that was what Peter Blatty, I can't talk. That is what they based the Exorcist movie from 1973 on. So
Right.
from this case in 1949 is what started that 1973 film. That was a huge, huge hit. Everybody was terrified of that when it came out,
Oh,
including
people
my
were
mother.
walking
She
away.
ended up walking out of the what's it called, the theater, because she was scared. She said it scared her to half to death, especially when the girl came down crab walking backwards with blood on her face. That's when mom's like, nope, I'm out. So she left.
Crazy because again, like I said before, that it's gone now, but I thought that was the re-release, the unseen footage film back in 2000 or 1999 or 2000, but I had seen it. I didn't move
I think
yet.
what happened is they released the entire unscripted version first, and then they watered it down. They took it off the screen because it was scaring too many people, and they watered it down and took out some of those,
So some people saw
some of
that version, other
the
people
scenes.
saw different.
And then, yeah, and then later on, they brought it back for those who really wanted to see every part of that movie. So I think they
Interesting.
had it the original, then they watered it down, and then they brought it back for the unscripted. So when you got the DVD or whatever,
Unscripted.
you would have the unscripted and the theatrical view. So
Mhm.
that could
Nice.
be.
That's very interesting. Wow. So what I thought was cool, well, not cool, but it was a strange correlation anyway, was okay, so back then, obviously 1970s, there was always focus, like even in the drop my pen, hold on. Ah, all right. Back in like the Bible, they even talked about exorcisms and just expelling evil spirits, and but still, like, I'm going off on a tangent here. Back in the 70s, they were more inclined to believe in people needing a demonic exorcism versus today. So going from 1970s to, let's say, when the exorcism of Emily Rose came out in 2005, it's more of a modern day approach to demonic possession. And what I
Mhm,
thought was a strange correlation was, while The Exorcist, even though the true story behind The Exorcist took place in the 40s, The
mhm,
Exorcist, like the actual movie, came out in 73. When that
mhm,
was taking place, another actual exorcism was taking place in Germany based off of the exorcism of Emily Rose. Her name was Anneliese Michel, and she
mhm,
came from a very religious background, and she had undergone 67 exorcisms,
mhm.
and
That
it
was
was
in
all
1975. So it was
right.
literally 2 years after The Exorcism came out.
Right. So what I thought was interesting was, obviously there's always going to be a big difference between the true story and the Hollywood version because unfortunately Hollywood doesn't think that the true version has, enough spicy details. But what I thought was very interesting was there were a few concepts that stuck with me anyway, seeing the 2005 movie that really messed with me too. And things that actually were documented taking place. Like Annalise, apparently she kept a journal and she would, keep it to herself, but she would also like let her priests read it. And she did document that she had a dream that she saw the Virgin Mary and that she told her, look, these demons aren't going to leave you. You can either come with me and be free, or you can stay and you can show the world that demons exist and they will know that demons exist, but also that God exists through you. And she said that
Mhm.
she chose to stay. And that to me was very powerful. And it makes me wonder, you know, the people that go through these things, do they actually do they have like a not a premonition, but do they have signs, omens leading up to, this event?
Mhm. Yeah, I believe that everybody has things that lead up to these kind of intense revelations. So if you're possessed, you're going like in Roland Doe's case, the knocking or the knocking on the walls, the three for the Holy Trinity, he had three scratch marks. It's very these all took place before the exorcism. The furniture moving, he was hearing voices, he thought his mother was calling him, but his mother was asleep. He was trying to call out to them, but he couldn't call out to them. Something inside of him wasn't letting him talk. It was taking over him. He was having the shakes. He was sleeping all the time. He would they would find him on the floor, just laying on the floor, and they would see the scratch marks on the floor. They said it was from him, but he had no nails to make those things. So there are definitely signs of demonic possessions prior to the actual possession itself. You're always going to hear, something. You're going to hear noises, you're going to hear bells, you're going to hear voices, things like that that would ultimately lead up to that the actual possession itself. But, mental health is very similar in some aspects too. So I mean, it could be a lot of things, but I believe there's definitely, signs that lead up to it. And it could lead up a week before, 2, 3 days before, months before, even a year before. They can come up with these things they start hearing and they just kind of brush it off like, hey, whatever. I don't, it's no big deal. I can handle it. I'm just hearing things. No,
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
not. There's something there.
yeah.
So it's always something that leads up to it. I believe there is. It's not one day I'm fine and the next I'm possessed. Don't think that's how it works. I think it
Well,
takes time because entities need
yeah.
that energy to build up, you
Mhm.
know?
What made me think about it was because the other night I was watching Final Destination, like the original, like the first one, not the original.
Mhm.
There's no remake, but you know what I mean. And
So
when I was watching it
I
this
love that.
time, when I was watching it this time, even though this is like deja vu, we've already talked about this, but it doesn't matter. We're doing it again. Um, what I thought was interesting is that because I only watch up into after the airplane scene because
Mhm.
it gets a little bit too graphic for me. That's like the worst. The shower scene, no, thank you. But I noticed details now that I didn't notice before. So when Alex was boarding the plane in his premonition dream, he, when you're about to step onto the actual plane from the whatever what's called. What is it called? I don't even know. But it doesn't matter. When you're boarding the plane and you can see like the crack underneath where you can see like, maybe the carts that are going to check the undercarriage of the airplanes. One of them that was passing as he was about to step on, it had the number 666. And I never saw that before, and that kinda
Mhm.
sparked the idea in my head of, like, are there signs beforehand? Even though,
Mhm.
Final Destination is completely, different. It's a horror franchise that has nothing to do with, factual
Yeah, but
anything.
some of those things can happen in real life
Yeah.
too. Like,
Right.
there's definitely synchronicities for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Coincidences, there's no such thing as coincidences, you know?
I struggle with that, but it's something that, I don't know. Like when people say, "Oh, well, if it's meant to happen, it will," or "It was already meant to be," and I don't know. I mean, there's a fine line because was your loved one meant to have that tragedy? Like it's something that you don't want to get into. You don't want to believe that that was always part of their fate. I don't like that. But to touch on lighter subjects,
Mhm.
if that's possible, and the demonic subject that we have today.
Mhm.
Um, so when you see people today, like on the street, let's say that you're at a stop sign or a stoplight and you see like a peddler and they're holding up a sign. Sometimes they're just holding up a sign saying, in need of some spare change. Sometimes you see them walking up and down the street or they're carrying on a seemingly weird conversation with somebody that you don't see. And you think it's easy for people to judge and say, oh, yeah, they're on drugs or whatever. But I've always wondered, what if they're not? What if they're
Mhm.
actually just in tune with something that we can't see? It
Mhm.
really it makes you wonder, what is the difference? Because between, demonic possession and mental illness, because in the Exorcist movie, they touched on, oh, there's an issue with the temporal lobe, and they're running all
Right.
these tests on them. And then in Emily Rose, she had seizures. She had
Mhm.
another condition. I can't remember.
Yeah. It was epilepsy, and she had, it was with her, there was something with, I gotta find it now. Hold on one second. Temporal lobe epilepsy. It's called Gesh- Geschwind syndrome, and it's a disorder marked by hyper religiosity. So, religious, hyper religious behavior that causes
Wow.
epilepsy in your temporal lobe. So
Oh,
she literally had a medical condition that they claim could have been, what caused her behavior. However, it's too intense for that to just be behavior. I don't think epilepsy in your temporal lobe is going to cause you to, lose your weight like that and tear your clothes
yeah.
off and scream and that it's just too much.
Bugs.
It's not just one
She was
thing.
eating
Hmm.
insects. Annalise, yeah, she was eating insects and she would like she would go
She ate the head
something.
off of a dead bat.
Yeah, and on top of that, she would like jump up and she would jump or fall down to her knees repetitively. And like she was acting like she was gonna pray, but she had messed up her knees so bad. She had like
Hmm.
broken everything you could.
Yep.
Her meniscus were torn, everything. Like you don't to me, you don't do that. And I mean, I could be wrong. There are people, with all kinds of mental illnesses, people with dementia or Alzheimer's or, just paranoid schizophrenia. Like they do or spirit. What is that? You mentioned it. It was schizophrenic.
If there's a schizophrenic disorder or schizoaffective disorder, there's also
Schizoaffective.
bipolar disorder. So
Oh yeah.
bipolar disorder with manic depressive episodes, I am bipolar, and I have manic episodes that some people think, I'm acting like I'm possessed. I go on these crazy binges where I'm like way, way up high and nobody can, I feel like I'm higher than the world and I'm queen of all whatever. And then I get into these extreme lows where I'm depressed and I don't want to wake up. Bipolar disorder can cause manic episodes where you can go on crazy cleaning sprees. Some people deviate to worse things like cocaine and drugs and alcohol and sex. They're all intertwined in a mental state. Schizophrenia, my brother is schizophrenic. My whole family has a lot of mental health issues, which causes us to be, a little different than, whatever the norm would be. So I don't know
More
what
in
normal
tune
is,
with
you
possibility.
know.
Yeah.
What?
I said you're more in tune with the possibilities.
Right. And with mental health disorders such as bipolar and schizophrenia, we are prone to having conversations with things that aren't there. I hear things in my head all the time. I hear people talking to me. I hear fireworks going off. I can carry on a conversation in my head with whoever or whatever. And as for schizophrenia, they literally think people are after them. They literally will talk to somebody who's not there. They'll stare at a wall and talk to them. like
Right.
there's somebody right in front of them, which can cause other people to get uncomfortable about it. But in all
Right.
honesty, I think it just makes us more open to the spiritual realm. I think that mental health issues are a way to have certain people open up to a spiritual plane, leveling plane. So I think it's a way to talk to angels and demons, like in Constantine. He was able to see demons and angels, and he said on this earthly plane, there's angels and demons that fight for for mankind. And I think that the demons can definitely influence people with no problem at all, and that can cause mental health issues. But in all honesty, behind all that mental health stigma, there's something more going on. Either demons are trying to, and they can do, even the Bible, the demons can intimidate and they can make you believe things that aren't real. They can influence you in ways that you wouldn't normally be influenced. So can angels, you know? When angels and demons would come down to Earth or come to Earth, they would mate and they would have little demon hybrid angel babies. And they were always more in tune with the reality around them. So it's more like I believe it's definitely not so much mental health, but I believe that we are in tune to the spiritual realm. So,
Yeah, because I mean, I don't judge, I mean, we all go through something. We all have something going on, or
mhm,
our mental state is afflicted in some way, shape, or form. But I would be lying if I said that I didn't go to a Taco Bell and on the corner I saw a guy yelling at a bush, and
mhm,
sometimes I think, okay, is he strung out on something? But then I think maybe he's not,
mhm,
like I
mhm,
said. So you don't know what somebody's going through. And my original point that I was getting to with Annalise McKell, when she would repeatedly do the jumping up and stomping down on her knee, or stomping down, slamming down on her
mhm,
knees, like, to me, that is more of a sign of possession than it is a
mhm,
mental illness. I don't know why. I mean, I'm sure there's instances, there's one-offs where people, "Oh, well, no, my aunt was schizophrenic, and so you have to scratch yourself to pieces," or, there's always gonna be that one person, or maybe a lot, I don't know, but to me,
and it could be. It could
yeah,
be. It could be definitely something like that. But if you really think about it, what can cause that? Influence of demons that can cause it, and that can lead into demonic possession, especially with a hyper religious fanatic family. If you are very hyper religious,
yeah.
you are more likely to think that is a demonic possession, which in most cases it is. Spirituality plays a huge role in this.
Well, I'm gonna run off of that topic with another. So, when there's that saying, "Oh, we all have our demons," it makes you wonder, like, people who really struggle with anxiety or depression or alcoholism or any kind of addiction, is it something that, like, could be demonically influenced? Or, is it something that's just in their nature, like their chemistry, like their brain, they're just excessive? Or
Mhm,
again, like, how much of our biology and DNA is ours, and how much are we susceptible to influence? You
mhm.
know what I mean? Like, that's what makes me wonder, like, what if that person, really doesn't have depression, but they're around specific demons that like to cause that? Or I don't
Right.
know. It really
Uh,
it makes you question everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And like I said, the hyper fanatics, the religious people who, really believe angels and demons are fighting and fighting for our souls, they would naturally feel like, okay, you're doing drugs. You must be influenced by a demon or a devil. You're smoking weed to help your anxiety, but in all reality, it's a demon that's trying to take over your body by making you
Mhm.
do the bad things. So it's always something. And like you said, it's a very opinionated subject. I
Yeah.
particularly believe in demons and angels. I do. I'm not Christian. I haven't been Christian in a long time, but I do
Right.
believe that there's a spiritual battle going on right now.
Oh,
Right
yeah.
now that people are noticing more and more. So I think that definitely mental health and spirituality come into play hand in hand with this kind of stuff. You said you had a quick story or something about a personal
Oh,
story?
I do, but first, I'm curious. So, when going back to the whole are there omens things,
Yeah.
omen
Mhm,
thing, whatever. I can't talk. It's
mhm,
fine. Um, so the people who are known to have been possessed, and there
mhm.
were, mocking of the Holy Trinity signs and things that,
Right.
led up to their possession. And then there's some people who they were never possessed, but they experience the same kind of things, maybe nightmares that wake up at 3 a.m. Like I had mentioned in the last podcast, it disappeared magically. The lawyer and exorcism of Emily Rose, I'm sure there probably isn't like a correlation to any fact, behind this, but in the movie,
Mhm,
the actress or, the character, she kept waking up at 3 a.m. and she could swear that she smelled something burning.
mhm,
And the priest had had the same thing, and he was like, "Oh, well, you're under attack." The demons, haha, like we kind of
mhm,
know maybe, didn't
mhm,
want them to tell their story. They didn't want word to get out about what was happening, or they just didn't want to be discussed, period. So
mhm.
I'm wondering, what is the difference between those who have been possessed and those who have not? Like, there's people who they've been in a really bad relationship. Maybe they've been in a relationship for 15 years. They've been married and it was very toxic. It wasn't always
Mhm,
that way, but it became toxic. And maybe they were codependent or whatever, but they didn't have the strength to leave the relationship until years later. And finally they
mhm.
can say, yeah, I finally had enough. It finally took too much of a toll on my psyche. I had to leave. It
Right.
makes me wonder, is it the same in like the spiritual realm, like where people, maybe they were under so much duress and they were possessed, sooner, maybe
I
within 3 month
Yeah,
period
I
of
mean,
being.
it could very well be. I mean, again, mental health and demonic possession could go hand in hand. If your relationship started out really good, everything was great, with their spouse, their boyfriend, whatever, everything turns out great in the beginning, but then it slowly goes downhill. There could be two things at play. There could be some demonic influences going on in the relationship. There could be mental health issues going on throughout the relationship. Um, you can notice signs of possession, like more, in my opinion, I believe more demonic possessions are more of a physical interaction with the spiritual plane. So saying things you don't actually mean but are really cruel and mean, that they can blame that on demonic entities,
Yeah.
or they could also blame it on mental health issues. So for example, if you're in a really crappy relationship and your boyfriend is just like a total jerk. He's a narcissistic jerk, okay? If you see them and he, blames you for everything and always turns it around on you, things like that. There's some people who would say that maybe there's a demonic influence, in his ear making him say these horrible things.
Right.
Or on the flip side, it could be he just doesn't want to get the help. He doesn't think he needs help. He doesn't want, yeah, he doesn't think he needs help. He thinks he's fine. He thinks that all his emotional status and things is because of something you did. Whoever the girlfriend or the wife, he blames somebody else, anybody but himself.
I mean,
So
people are
that could just
problematic.
be, huh?
People are just problematic sometimes. I get that. So yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. And if they're not willing to go and get the help that they need, it's not going to leave your relationship but not in nothing but shambles. Your relationship is going to be over before you actually get to celebrate your relationship. So you have to have two people who want to be together and really, really show each other. And if you don't have that, then it's just a toxic place and you need to get yourself out of it. So that's the advice I'd give anybody who's going through something like that. So it could be either or, but if there's physical things, it's more of a demonic nature. You start hearing noises, you start, you know, plants start acting up like your plant did the other day. You can start hearing knocking, you start hearing like voices when nobody's around,
The
things that
podcast
wouldn't
is
normally,
here.
huh? Yeah, our podcast disappears. Yeah, so there's a lot at play.
Not
So it could be
today.
a lot of things.
But so I guess maybe it's like character based or strength or resilience based and some demonic possession, you know, occurrences. So like some people maybe they didn't like Emily Rose, she was like you said, they were hyper religious. So that was something that
Mhm,
she could have, been more susceptible to.
Mhm.
or some people
Or they
maybe
could be
just,
more laid back, like in the actual The Exorcist movie in 1973.
yeah.
The mom was, busy working. It was just her and her daughter. Her daughter got bored. She
Yeah.
discovered this Ouija board in her basement and just started talking to these things. And her mom, oh, it's just a game. It's just a game, not really thinking about it. And then when it was too late is when they found out, hey, that's more than just a game. Something happened. So it could be mental health leading up to it, or it could be just a fluke. You saw something in the basement, you thought it would be fun to try, why not? Or in Roland Dahl's case, his aunt introduced him to the spiritual realm. So always, always close those portals and say goodbye if you're going to use a Ouija board.
By the way, it was Georgetown, Washington, D.C. I don't know where
Okay.
I got Maryland, but whatever. Maybe they said it in the, I don't know, maybe not. Maybe I'm just, it's a Mandela effect that exists only in my head. So, okay, so I've got a quick little story that I want to say. You already know about this, but
Mhm.
okay, so a few years ago, I went to a concert. It was my favorite band ever, still, have been forever, Garbage. And, they're not a satanic cult or anything like that. Like it's a fun, uplifting kind of pop grunge band. And I was so excited. And it was only like an hour and a half away. And so, I went with a friend and we saw it. I was so pumped. I was so happy. I was singing along every single song. And it was a duo concert. So there was Garbage and then Depeche Mode was also going to be
Mhm.
playing. And most of the people that were there, they were there for Depeche Mode. And
Mhm.
so they weren't, up and singing. So it's kind of like me, just like, doing my thing, enjoying it. But we left after Garbage was finished. And by then, even though it was in the summer, it was still dark. And about halfway through the drive, my friend, we were listening to music, we were talking, and then we just got quiet. And she broke the silence and she was like, "What's up with the energy shift?" And I was like, "I don't know. I felt it too, though." It's like I was like, I noticed my hands were like white knuckle on the steering wheel. It's just everything felt off. And we tried to get home, and my GPS kept malfunctioning. Hers was malfunctioning. They were given like completely different coordinates. I just needed gas. Like it was crazy. And I
Mhm.
was like, "Oh my God, I just want to get home." And as you know, after I dropped her off and I went back home, it was not okay that night when I slept. It was like a sleep paralysis, but it was not sleep paralysis. Like I was being attacked by something. I saw something
Mhm.
that was holding me down, and you and your
Right.
husband had to help cut the ties with that. And so it makes me wonder. People, they say, oh, if you watch horror movies, if you listen to, Slipknot or whatever, which are awesome, by the way, you're bringing in the devil and whatever. But I went to a Garbage concert, like I wasn't thinking anything negative. So like, who's to say
Right.
like who brings what in and why? What makes somebody susceptible? What makes them a target for things like
Well,
this?
that is a little bit harder. I remember you calling me the day after, and you were telling me, "Hey, there's something going on," and I could feel it. So, like I told you, I believe what happened with that is that you had an attack because you were not properly protected. You and I are very, very open individuals. We are very susceptible to the unknown. And you and I have been dealing with this since we were, knee high to a grasshopper. We've been having our own experiences.
Yeah.
But what happened that day was the fact that you did not bring any of your crystals with you. You weren't thinking about protecting yourself. You were just thinking about having a really good time. You weren't
Yeah.
really paying attention to the surroundings. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that it was the energy of the music, but it could have been the energy of someone around
Somebody
you.
in the
So,
audience.
yeah,
Mhm.
and you absorbed their negative energy, which kind of
Or
became an
something like a
attachment.
hitchhiker attached
Huh?
to them. Maybe it was something attached to them, or it could have been a hitchhiker on my drive home.
Right, exactly. But then, it just kept getting worse and worse for you. I remember you
Mhm.
telling me,
Mhm.
I see this thing, it's
Yeah.
here, this old lady is watching me and it's freaking
It
me
was
out. And
amazing.
I
It
know
was
that we
spooky.
had to do that cord cutting ceremony to get it away from you. But with us being as susceptible as we are because of our paranormal experiences and our lifestyle and life choices, we are more prone to spiritual attacks. But as long as you're prepared and you're grounded and you've got, you've done your homework when it comes to the spiritual realm, you'll be all right. It's a really simple process to ground yourself and meditate and make yourself more protected from spiritual energy around you. Mediums have to do it all the time. I have
Yeah.
to do it all the time because I can talk to ghosts, I can see ghosts, and I know that you have to stay grounded when you're doing these types of things because otherwise your energy is not there, like your protection energy is not there. They're basically going to run all over you, and that can lead to demonic possessions. Spirits can jump into your body, and if you're not protected properly. So I think you were just, attacked by something from somebody else. So,
So the
and it was on a
moral of the
spiritual level.
story, yeah,
Huh?
I was gonna say, so moral of the story is don't ever let your guard down. Doesn't matter what kind of concert you go to, doesn't matter, oh, it's a family friendly outing, everything's gonna be just fine.
We
Like
used to do the same thing with
there's
our Backstreet
energies
Boys concerts. Do you remember that?
there's energies all around us. I mean, if there's people, even if there's not people, there's energy all around us all the time. You never know.
And we're
And
like sponges.
exactly, unfortunately. So I mean that can lead to sickness, and we'll get into that in another podcast. But if you guys have any comments, questions, or stories of your own that you'd like to share, we have an email that you can share your stories with. And, if you're willing, you would like us to share your stories, anonymously or use your username, whatever, however you want it, you can at unscriptedparanormal@gmail.com.
We look forward to hearing anything you guys have to say to us. We're open to comments, concerns. If you like what you hear, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, give us a thumbs up, like our stuff, and please, 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 if you like it, share it with others who you think will like it too. We really just want to find a bunch of like-minded individuals where we have a freedom of space to talk and just get to know, a little bit more about each other. So until next time, I'm Sarah,
And I'm Amy.
and we're unscripted.
Unscripted, yep. So keep it creepy.
And keep it real.
Bye,
Talk to
guys.
you later. Bye.